Steve Harvey was in the middle of asking the Patterson family about things people do in their sleep when something happened that would prove dreams don't have expiration dates. The phone call that interrupted the show would change everything for a mother who thought her time had passed and remind everyone watching that sometimes life saves the best surprises for when you're ready to receive them. Angela Patterson stood second in line, her family arranged beside her like a protective wall of love and support. At 43, she carried herself with the quiet grace of someone who had learned to find joy in everyday moments. Her husband, Michael, a pediatric nurse, kept glancing at her with the soft concern that comes from 20 years of marriage. Their 3 children, Sophia, 19 and home from NYU for the week, Marcus, 17, and already taller than both parents, and Bella, 15 with her mother's exact smile, completed their lineup. The Pattersons from Chicago were doing well against the Morrison family from Phoenix, up by 70 points and riding high on the energy of the studio. But anyone watching closely could see something in Angela's eyes when Steve asked certain questions. When the board showed dreams as an answer, she touched her throat absently. When someone mentioned Broadway, her smile flickered just slightly. "All right, Patterson family," Steve announced with his characteristic enthusiasm. "You're killing it today. One more good round, and you're headed to fast money. Angela, you're up. The category is Things People Say They'll Do Someday. You versus Morrison family captain. Let's go." And Steve positioned himself between the 2 contestants. Name something people always say they'll do someday, but usually never get around to. Angela's hand hovered over the buzzer. For just a moment, something passed across her face, a shadow of what might have been. Then she slapped the buzzer with determination. "Travel the world, Steve." "Good answer. Show me travel the world." The board lit up. Number 3 answer, 18 points. The Patterson family erupted in cheers. But as they celebrated, Angela's phone began to ring. The ringtone cut through the studio like a blade of pure nostalgia, defying gravity from Wicked, the powerful notes of the Broadway anthem filling the space. Angela's face went white, then red. She scrambled for her jacket pocket. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Mr. Harvey. I know phones are supposed to be off. I don't even know why that's my ringtone anymore." She fumbled with the phone, clearly mortified. But Steve had caught the look that crossed her face when the song played. The way her entire body had responded to those first few notes, like muscle memory, never forgets. "Hold on now," he said gently. "That's not just any ringtone. That's a Broadway person's ringtone." "You a theater fan, Angela?" Angela's daughter, Sophia, spoke up before her mother could deflect. "She's not just a fan, Mr. Harvey. Mom was." "Sophia, honey, not now," Angela interrupted softly, but her phone was still ringing, the caller ID showing a New York number. "Answer it," Steve said suddenly. Something in his gut, that same instinct that had guided him through thousands of interviews, told him this mattered. "I got a feeling about this." Angela looked uncertain, but the phone kept ringing. With shaking hands, she answered and, at Steve's gesture, put it on speaker. "Hello? Angela Romano?" The voice was cultured, precise, with the kind of clarity that comes from years of projecting to the back row of theaters. "I should say, Angela Patterson now. This is Harrison Fitzgerald." Angela's legs nearly gave out. Michael immediately moved to support her.
"Harrison Fitzgerald? How did you... It's been 20 years."
The audience was riveted, though most had no idea who Harrison Fitzgerald was. Steve knew the name. One of Broadway's most legendary casting directors, responsible for discovering some of the biggest names in theater. 20 years, 3 months, and 16 days, to be exact, Harrison said. And there was something in his voice. Regret, perhaps. The day you were supposed to audition for the lead in Starlight's End. The day that would have changed everything. Angela's children looked confused. Marcus whispered, "Mom, what's he talking about?" But Angela couldn't speak. Tears were already flowing. So Harrison continued, his voice filling the studio. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need to tell you about the one who got away. In 1998, I held open auditions for a new musical. Thousands showed up. But one voice, one presence, stopped everyone in their tracks. Angela Romano was 22 years old, fresh from Northwestern. And she had that thing you can't teach. The thing that makes people stop breathing when you sing. Steve moved closer, holding the microphone so everyone could hear clearly. I called her back 3 times. Each call back, she got better. By the final audition, every person in that theater, choreographers, musicians, other actors, everyone knew we were watching a star being born. I told her to prepare for one final audition for the composer himself. That audition was scheduled for March 15th, 1999. Angela spoke, her voice barely a whisper. March 15th, 2:30 p.m., the Broadhurst Theater. I remember everything. But you never showed up, Harrison said gently. I waited. We all waited. I called your apartment. Your agent? Nothing. I thought perhaps you'd gotten cold feet or taken another offer. I was furious, actually. How dare someone waste such talent, such opportunity? Sophia grabbed her mother's hand. Mom, what happened? Why didn't you go? Angela looked at her eldest daughter with such love, it made the entire audience lean in. Because at 2:25 p.m. on March 15th, 1999, my water broke. 6 weeks early. You decided you couldn't wait anymore to join the world. The studio gasped collectively. Steve himself took a step back, visibly moved. Harrison's voice cracked slightly. I didn't know. Angela, I didn't know. Until last week. How could you? Angela said, wiping her tears. I never told anyone in the business. I was 22, single, terrified. My parents had already disowned me for pursuing theater instead of law school. When Sophia came early, when she needed NICU care, when I held her for the first time, Broadway became a dream I put in a drawer and locked away. Michael interjected, his voice proud and protective. She never told me this whole story. We met when Sophia was 2. All I knew was that Angela had done some theater, but decided to focus on raising her daughter. I had no idea she walked away from what would have certainly been a Tony Award-winning career. Harrison finished. Angela, I need you to know something. Starlight's End ran for 8 years. The actress who eventually got the part, she was good, very good. But she wasn't you, and I knew it every single night. Steve asked the question everyone was thinking. Mr. Fitzgerald, why are you calling now, after 20 years? Because, Harrison said, his excitement building, I'm directing again, for the first time in a decade. A new musical called Second Chances. It's about women who reimagine their lives after 40. Women who prove that dreams don't have expiration dates. And I wrote the lead role for a very specific voice. A voice I've been hearing in my head for 20 years. Angela laughed through her tears, but it was tinged with sadness. Harry, I'm 43. I haven't sung professionally in 2 decades. I teach middle school choir in Chicago. I drive carpool. I make casseroles. That girl you remember? She's gone. Prove it, Harrison challenged. Sing something right now. Anything. If that voice is gone, I'll apologize for disrupting your life and never call again. But if it's still there, the studio fell completely silent. 300 people held their breath. Steve Harvey, who had seen countless surprises on his show, stood transfixed. Angela looked at her family. Michael nodded encouragingly. Her children, these 3 souls who had only known their mother as Mom, not as the artist she'd been, looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and awe. I can't. Not here. Not without warming up. Mom, Bella, the 15-year-old, spoke up. You sing in the shower, every morning. You sing in the car. You sing when you're cooking. Just sing. Angela closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. For just a moment, the 43-year-old mother of three was gone, and in her place stood the 22-year-old who'd made a theater full of professionals weep. She began with no accompaniment, her voice starting soft and then building. Is it true what they say, that dreams can wait forever? That the spark that once burned bright can return like spring's first light? The notes filled the studio with such pure, crystalline beauty that people began crying without even realizing it. Angela's voice had matured, deepened, gained the kind of emotional resonance that only comes from living, from loving, from sacrificing. It wasn't the voice of an ingenue anymore. It was better. It was the voice of a woman who had lived enough life to understand what every word meant. When she finished, the silence lasted for 5 full seconds before the studio erupted. The audience leaped to their feet. The Morrison family was applauding as hard as the Pattersons. Steve Harvey, the man who always had something to say, stood speechless. Harrison's voice came through the phone, thick with emotion. My God, Angela, you're better. You're so much better. Please, please come to New York. Let me give you the career that should have been yours. Harry, Angela looked at her family, torn between dreams. My life is here. My children, their schools, Michael's job. Actually, Michael interrupted. About that. He faced his wife with a smile that suggested secrets. You know how Northwestern Medical has been trying to recruit me for their pediatric program? The one in New York? I've been waiting for a reason to say yes. Sophia added, Mom, I'm already at NYU. I could actually see you more if you moved to New York. Marcus grinned. And I'm a senior. 1 more year. Honestly, finishing high school in New York? That would be kind of amazing. Bella, the youngest, took her mother's hand. Mom, you gave up your dream for Sophia. Then you kept giving it up for Marcus and me. When is it your turn? Steve finally found his voice. Angela, can I tell you something? In all my years doing this show, I've seen a lot of surprises. But this, watching your kids fight for your dream, that tells me everything about what kind of mother you've been. Harrison spoke again. Angela, I need to tell you one more thing. I didn't just call randomly. Your daughter Sophia sent me a video. She's been sending me videos for 6 months. Videos of you singing at school concerts, at church, in your kitchen. She found an old review of your college performance of Evita and tracked me down. This young woman has been fighting for your dream when you wouldn't. All eyes turned to Sophia, who stood tall despite her tears. Mom, you taught us to fight for what matters. You matter. Your dreams matter. And it's not too late. Steve made a decision. Mr. Fitzgerald, when do rehearsals start? 8 weeks. But I'd want Angela here next week to work with the composer, begin preparations. Done. Steve announced. Family Feud is gonna make this happen. We're covering moving expenses, temporary housing, whatever the Patterson family needs to make this transition. He turned to the cameras. Because sometimes the best dreams are the ones that wait until you're ready for them. Angela was sobbing now, held up by her family. But what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough anymore? Harrison's response was immediate. Angela, I've directed Patti LuPone, Audra McDonald, Bernadette Peters. Trust me when I say, talent like yours doesn't disappear. It deepens. It ripens. It waits. And right now, Broadway is waiting for Angela Romano Patterson. The Morrison family captain, who had been watching all this unfold, suddenly spoke up. Excuse me, Mr. Harvey. Our family would like to forfeit. The Pattersons should go straight to fast money. This woman needs to get to Broadway. Their gestures sparked another round of applause. But Angela wasn't done surprising everyone. Wait, she said, finding her voice again. Harry, if I do this, and I cannot believe I'm even considering this, I have conditions. Name them, Harrison said immediately. The show schedules around my kids' important events. I don't miss graduations, school plays, Marcus's basketball championships. I'm a mother first. Done. And I want to establish a fund for parents who have to choose between their dreams and their children, because no one should have to make that choice alone and unsupported like I did. Angela, the producers will absolutely support that. In fact, they want to meet Sophia. Any young woman who fights that hard for her mother's dreams has a future in this business, if she wants it. Sophia beamed through her tears. The next hour was a whirlwind. The Pattersons played fast money and won $20,000, but it felt almost anticlimactic after what had transpired. The real celebration was in the conversations that happened after. Angela on the phone with theater friends she hadn't spoken to in decades, her children Googling Broadway apartments, Michael already reaching out to Northwestern Medical in New York. But the moment that went viral, the moment that would be shared millions of times in the coming days, was when Angela pulled all three of her children close and said, "You know what the best role I ever played was? Your mother. Everything else is just extra magic." Steve Harvey, wrapping up the show, stood with the Patterson family. "You know what we witnessed today? We witnessed what happens when love multiplies instead of divides. When children become their parents' biggest cheerleaders. When a woman thinks she's lost her dream only to discover she was just preparing for it." He turned to Angela. 20 years ago, you chose motherhood over Broadway. But look what that choice created. 3 extraordinary humans who love you so much they conspired to give your dream back to you. That's not a consolation prize. That's the grand prize. 8 weeks later, on opening night of Second Chances at the Richard Rodgers Theater, Angela Romano Patterson stood in the wings waiting for her Broadway debut at age 43. In the audience sat her family, Michael, Sophia, Marcus, and Bella, wearing matching t-shirts that said, "Angela's Angels." Harrison Fitzgerald found her before curtain. "Nervous? Terrified," Angela admitted. "But Harry, I'm also ready in a way I never could have been at 22. Every heartbreak, every joy, every bedtime story, and skin knee and teenage argument, it's all in my voice now. The woman singing tonight knows what she's singing about. That's exactly why I waited 20 years to find you again." Harrison smiled. The reviews would be spectacular. The New York Times would write, "Angela Romano Patterson proves that sometimes the best performances come from those who've lived enough life to understand the weight of every word they sing." Her Broadway debut at 43 is not just a triumph, it's a masterclass in why art requires life experience to truly soar. The show would run for 3 years. Angela would win her Tony. But more importantly, she'd inspire thousands of parents who thought their dreams were behind them. The Patterson Dream Fund would help dozens of artist parents pursue careers they thought were lost. Sophia would indeed enter theater, but as a producer, specifically focused on creating opportunities for non-traditional performers. On closing night, as Angela took her final bow, she looked up at the balcony where her family, Saturday Marcus, now at Columbia, Bella, following her passion for dance, Michael, who'd become one of New York's most beloved pediatric specialists, and Sophia, who just produced her first off-Broadway show. But it all started with a phone ringing on Family Feud, with a daughter's determination to see her mother shine, with a family learning that dreams deferred aren't dreams denied. They're dreams waiting for the perfect moment to bloom. Steve Harvey kept a photo from that day in his office. Not the moment of surprise, not the tears, but the moment after, when Angela stood surrounded by her children, all of them holding each other, a family that understood that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the permission to be everything they were meant to be. That's what family does. Steve would tell people who asked about the photo, they don't just support your dreams, they refuse to let you abandon them. And sometimes, they're the ones who pick them up, dust them off, and hand them back to you when you're finally ready to soar. The phone that rang that day on Family Feud did more than interrupt a game show. It interrupted a life that had settled for less than it deserved. It proved that 43 wasn't too late, that dreams could wait, that children could become their parents' greatest advocates, and that sometimes the universe conspires to give you exactly what you need, exactly when you're ready to receive it. Angela Patterson still teaches. Now she's on faculty at Juilliard, passing on not just technique, but the wisdom that comes from walking away and finding your way back. She tells her students that the path doesn't have to be straight, that detours can become the journey, that sometimes the best time to achieve your dreams is after you've lived enough life to truly appreciate them. And every night before she goes on stage, because she still performs selective roles that speak to her soul, she looks at a photo on her dressing room mirror. It's from that day on Family Feud, the moment her children convinced her to sing. A reminder that the best dreams are the ones shared with people who love you enough to push you toward your light, even when you've forgotten how bright you can shine.